Hello and welcome to Random Fandom FC, the podcast where we meet a new fan each week, learn how they ended up supporting their team, what's been their highest high, their lowest low, and anything else we should know. My name's Rob, an Arsenal fan living in the States, and I'll be your host. Okay, this week we've got another country to add to the list, which is very exciting. But before we get there and meet this week's fan, just need to do some housekeeping over some of the guests that we've had come on so far because it's been quite a successful season for three of them, kind of. And it seems to be the year of the bird. The Liver Birds, Liverpool, won the league. So we had John on. So congratulations, John. Well done on the league. I'm not bitter at all. Then we've had Laurie came on, Crystal Palace fan. He went to the FA Cup final, shared a picture of him and his son at the game that just looked absolutely amazing to have been there. I think the look of the face of the two of them was mixture of joy and disbelief all rolled into one. And then, of course, we had Dave on, who was a Spurs fan, where they have absolutely managed to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, where the season that looked like it was destined to give them nothing, well, Ange has gone and proved himself right with the always win something in his second season. So last night they beat United to win the Europa League. So well done, Spurs. Come on, I'm man enough to say it. Now, we haven't had a Newcastle fan on yet, but obviously they won the Carabao Cup. So we've had the Liverbirds, the Magpies, the Eagles, and the Cockerels if we look at logos. So, yeah, Year of the Bird. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's find out who we're talking to this week on Random Fandom. So, as the crowd is chanting, who are you and who do you support?
Hi, I'm Carlos Silva. I support the Whitecaps FC here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
See, this is exactly why I started this podcast. Is that yes, I wanted to talk to about fans of all clubs, and while originally I was kind of focused on maybe say England, and then we
Yeah,
were able to get Renato that covered a team from Peru the other week. So now here we
nice.
go covering Canada. So okay, Whitecaps. Tell me when and why.
When? Ever since I was a kid, our beloved team has been through ups and downs all over the place in their history. But yeah, they were part of the NASL, the old like precursors to the MLS and everything else before. So they've been a big part of the team and had a few local boys and stuff been part of it and still part of it really. So I remember being, oh God, I was like, they won the NASL in '79, I think. I was like 4. So,
Wow.
but then they were a huge part of the city, right? They played the Sounders in their home opener and down the road, and now they're after ups and downs and things. They're back on top. They're like the team's about to get sold, and they're back on the top of the MLS. It's crazy.
Yeah, because I was originally when I was looking at this, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is kind of one of those examples of where someone like me or maybe someone that follows another UK team, we're just like watching a little tiny window of a club because they've been around for 100 something years, and we're just supporting them, for this little window." I was like, "But the Whitecaps have only been going since 2009." I was like, "Hang on a minute, no, they haven't. In their MSL guys, they have." So you've kind of supported them all the way through the NASL, and then I guess the transition into when they then formally joined the MLS in, like I say, I think it was 2009, right? You came. So did they just physically close the one club? Did they have to like restructure the club? Kind of what was that pivoting across from like the one format to the other?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they knocked off. I mean, I think they knocked off New York when for the NSL championship, and they've always been sort of like a small. Um, they've been they are a small market team, so they've always been around and had some a lot of like core fans and stuff like that here. They I think they reverberated into what was called the 86ers because Vancouver was founded in 1886. And then they became and then when the MLS got started up again, I think they pivoted from the league that they were in was sort of failing, and then they pivoted into the Whitecaps again and became the MLS. I'll confess I'm not the most hardcore fan of their history, but they are the peak. They are the peak of professional soccer here in the city. So um, I think with a lot of things too, like Alfonso Davies came up through our academy system. He debuted at 17. There's been sort of the club has had some issues with, in the past with some of their coaches and the women's teams, unfortunately, and I won't get into it here, but it's all online. And I think now we've gone through a couple coaches, and the men and the organization have sort of are in that spot where they're growing again, and they're meeting some success. So which is good because we're like, it's Vancouver. We're a hockey town too, and the Canucks aren't all that great right now and missed the playoffs, and they're in a sweet spot right now where like Canadian football hasn't started, but again, Canadian football team's a small market team too. So it's nice to see the Caps actually getting back into with a new coach, perhaps a potential new buyer, a new owner they'll hopefully keep the club in the city. Because Vancouver, I don't know, like we lost the Grizzlies, and that was a major blow to the ego of the city, I think. But hopefully we can get back and have the Whitecaps go back into a long playoff streak too.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come to the current kind of where you find yourselves now in a minute. What we always kind of like to do is, and you kind of said, "Oh, I'm not the most diehard fan," and it doesn't matter if you're a diehard fan or a casual fan. I think these next two pieces that we'll hit, usually everyone has got something they can lean on. What's the worst moment you've had supporting them, and then kind of what's the highest high they brought you. So let's start with the worst one first. Kind of following the Caps. What's the worst moment when you think, "Oh man, never want to do that again"?
Yeah, you know what? I would say I can't recall a bad game, really. I mean, I think I got back into it because my kids are young, and now my son's into soccer. So it's really been one of those things where he's he's got a passion for the game, and getting back into it. We Last season we were hoping that Messi would have come by around when Miami was supposed to play them, and we bucked up the money to pay, and there's 55,000 people all gone to see Miami come to town with the Fabulous Four, and it didn't happen because the scheduling was terrible. It's like a Wednesday night game, and I think that was probably the crushing thing, is to tell the kid, no, sorry, Messi's not coming. All we get is Jordi Alba out of the four of them. And so
Oh, no way. Yeah, I mean, we saw that
yeah,
kind of hit the news, like especially in Messi's first year over here. Um, the kind of
yeah,
the attendance for any of the away games when people were anticipating that Messi was gonna show up was insane. He was
yeah,
like
but
just
great,
like stadium filler, and
yeah,
it was crazy to see that. But there were a number of teams that kind of suffered like you did, where unfortunately it was a Messi no show, and there was a lot of backlash on that. And at the end of the day, it's not,
yeah.
it's Miami that have the obligation to play the game. It doesn't matter if they happen to bring a particular player from their roster, right? It's just, unfortunately, it just was the guy that everybody wanted to see. So,
Well, exactly. It was more disappointing to me as a fan of the game and a fan of MLS that not only did they not bring up, um, well, I could understand if but Messi's the face of MLS, to be honest. Like, really, is it so much hard for him to get on a plane and just wave and make an appearance and maybe just sit on the bench and, you know? But the fact that they only didn't even bring Suarez, um, they only played Alba, and they played a bunch of other guys that were part of the team, and we ended up losing the game. It was ridiculous.
oh
So
wow, double whammy.
so the high basically is what happened like with this CONCACAF club champ. It was just like, oh, they went into their house, won our game, and then went into their house, and the Barcelona four came up and got soundly trounced, and then we went back to their house and won that playoff. So that was the high for sure. So it's been really fun to see all that.
So that's I was having to take a look at that. So that is the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So
Yeah.
that's across. I was just looking at it here. It's across North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, right?
It's the
Um,
Western Hemisphere equivalent of Champions League, right?
yeah,
So
and you
yeah,
guys are in the final,
we
coming up
are
against Cruz
Cruz
Azul from Mexico, right?
Azul, yeah.
Okay,
So it's coming
I knew
up.
my
Depending on
pronunciation was going to stink there.
yeah. Yeah. So it's been fun. It's been fun watching them go on this run with the new coach who's and most of the players stuck around from last season too. So we've had a couple of young guys. Um uh there's been a couple of guys that young guys like Almi Ahmed who's coming up and he's come through the Academy League. There's Akube who's been around for a while and unfortunately he's been had some injury issues. Brian White plays for the U.S. men's team. Our best player Ryan Gauld has been injured, and we've been doing fine without him, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, because
So
I was looking at that run, like you say. I mean, you trounced Miami 5-1 on aggregate against the two. But what I did notice was that unlike the Champions League, where they sorry 5-1, did I say 5-2? Um,
something,
they unlike the Champions League, where they publish kind of where the venue's going to be for the final. It
yeah,
looks like I was seeing how they basically compare your run in the tournament with the other finalists, and whoever's got the best overall kind of record during the championship, they host it. So they just pipped you like ever so slightly. They kind of have won, I think, one
yeah,
more game than you won over it. They scored. They didn't even score more than you. You scored more than them. But yeah, they just come out and they get to host the final. So it's a little
yeah,
bit, a little bit
yeah, it's
unfair that you got to go
unfortunate.
to their house for the final. But no, we wish you luck in that one. I think that's
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
up. When's that? It's going to
exactly.
be 1st of June.
Yeah, just 1st of June, and the boys just played last night, and they drew. They've got a lot of run of games right now, so they drew against the Valor FC, Manitoba team, in the Canadian championships. So they're due to come back and play the second round of that leg. Um, I think soon. I'm not exactly sure the dates. They were just announced, but it's phenomenal to see. I just hope that the boys. I mean, in the silver lining with all the successes that our best player has still been out injured, and there's no rush to get him back. Let him heal up. We'll be even more stronger, I hope. So we're looking forward to it. It'll be amazing. It'll be amazing if the boys get to win the championship, and it'll be a nice touch because they've won the local. They've won a bunch of local. I mean, we won the Canadian championship. This might be the fourth one if they beat Valor. I think they may have to go to another round. I'm not quite sure, but they're trying to go for four in a row for the Canadian club championships. Um, there's also another uh, sort of cup that they've done for the name escapes me now, but like there's a cup between the Sounders and Portland and ourselves, the Cascadia Cup. There we go,
Right.
and we've won that a couple times, so that's been fun. Yeah, so it would be great to see them go on a long run and eventually, fingers crossed, maybe they get to the MLS Cup final and do a big playoff push. So
Yeah, because I was looking
it'll
at
be fun to
the
see. It'll be great to see what it looks like in my kids' eyes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I mean, funny you just bring that up. One of the earlier episodes I did was Crystal Palace, and I had Laurie come on and talk about Crystal Palace. And he took his son to the FA Cup final this weekend, and he sent me a picture of him and his son at full time. And I tell you what, I can't work out if that picture is pure joy or pure disbelief or a little bit of both because nobody expected them to beat Manchester City. And it's just, I mean, that's just
Yeah.
kind of like just memories for life. That is right there. It's
Oh, for
fantastic
sure.
to see. So, yeah, I hope
Yeah.
you get that with your boys as well. But looking at your record, right? I was looking at this and I was looking at where Vancouver are at the moment. I thought, okay, they're a pretty good MLS team. I'd not really, I'm not big into the MLS. I hadn't really looked at it. I was looking back, like 2020 didn't qualify for the playoffs. 2021 got knocked out in round one after finishing 12th. 2022 didn't qualify; they were 17th. 2023 they were 13th. 2024 they were 14th. I'm like, okay, so they're kind of they hang out at the bottom end
Yeah.
of the
Yep.
division. And then I looked at where you are now. No,
It's phenomenal.
I
Unbeaten in 12.
I was just about to say, what is going on? Because you are currently, I think it gets split into MLS as an Eastern and Western division. So right now, you are top of the Western, and then when they combine it together in
Yeah.
what do they call it, Supporters Shield, you're like third, just a point behind Philadelphia. What
Yeah.
what has changed from, say, the last 5 years of
Yeah.
mid-table obscurity to what do you see different this year? What's clicked?
Yeah, I think you can definitely see it in sort of the play. The when we had those middling years, I think they were trying to find their way. I think we definitely got lucky in some ways in that we had it's a shame that Antonio D uh, Antonio D he didn't stick around, but he was such a good talent and he moved on, right? But they've developed the talent in-house through the academy. So there's been a couple of good things there. There's I think the coach Benny Sartini, he was really passionate, like really brought that Italian coach, Italian mentality to hype this team up. And we had a couple of guys like Ryan Gauld, who's been around and has been stellar. His play with Brian White has been great. You found that like I found watching the games that they were. I think Sartini was kind of like always just playing on getting the crosses into the box and hoping that Brian White would make some magic that way. But this year they've gotten like a couple of new guys. They drafted a young kid from I'm gonna say from North Carolina who's been phenomenal. Like he was defending Messi, and I can't remember his name right now, but he was phenomenal. Like just solid, like
Yeah.
for a new draft pick. And then there's a couple guys that have just come up, like a couple Canadians, and who have been developed really well, and I think they've magically. And now with the executive have brought in our new coach, and I think he's sort of allowed them to free roam a little bit more and press a little bit higher, knowing that our backfield has been a little bit stronger now. So you kind of see that it's just like there's just different dynamics going on. And Sebastian Berhalter, the son of the U.S. Mountain former former coach, he's coming to his own as well. So I think it's sort of a mix of all these things that have come together, right? And
Yeah, so you kind of have all the pieces that were almost there, and then almost like the
yeah,
last little pieces to complete the puzzle have all kind of slotted in. And
oh
yeah,
yeah,
you guys are flying at the moment.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. You see this all the time in professional sports. Like sometimes you just get like the youth, the guys that have been there for a while. You get maybe a couple of different signings, and it just adds to this different blend to gel really well, right? So
yeah, I think you're right. I think we see it all over the place. If sometimes even just like a new manager coming in with the same group of players, or maybe one or two additions, has a slightly different philosophy, and things can just start clicking for players that it
yeah,
hadn't been clicking for before. I mean, over in the Premier League, there's no kind of bigger example than I would say the Nottingham Forest. Last year, they were facing
yeah,
off relegation.
just
This
that
year, with
much.
the same,
Yeah,
pretty much the same team, but it's the second year of Nunez getting his kind of philosophy into it. Players are bought into it, and here they are thinking about a Champions League spot on the last day of the season.
yeah,
It's crazy how quickly things can kind of swing around in the games. So
exactly. Hopefully their Greek owner's passion doesn't doesn't throw a wrench too much into the plans. He's like, okay, you gotta hold off a little bit. Just let the coach let the manager do his work.
So just talk me through the MLS. Because, like I say, apologies for being a little bit naive about the way the MLS is structured. So,
Yeah.
if you finish top of your division and win I mean, I assume you consider the champion of that, but that's not really the big ticket, is it? The whole thing is structured to then going into the playoffs to then win
Mhm.
to win the trophy, which is
Yep.
so unlike, say, the UK, where we have the Premier League and then, say, the FA Cup running as two different tournaments in parallel to each other, the MLS is kind of broken up as you'll have the regular season, and if you win and you finish top of that, okay, fantastic. But it's not the real prize. It's to keep
Yeah.
going into the playoffs, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of the North American model of professional sports, right? we just don't have like what Europe and UK and even like Africa and Asia have. That just the population density, the geography is the I think is the big thing against us. So I mean, we do have the Canadian soccer league. Getting, maybe Toronto needs a step away. Maybe they need to play in there for a little bit and find their footing again. But honestly, like you just the MLS being like all the owners own a little bit of all the teams type of thing. So like a rising ship, like a rising ocean sails all the boats type of thing, right? They the the playoff structure is meant to like just bring that extra bit. You get the supporter shield, which is a nice bonus for winning the regular season, but then the playoffs come in, you gotta like push hard for that little extra bit, right? So the um and then you got the machinations of soccer, right? Guys leaving to go play for their national teams, and that can take a little bit of time out. I
Yep,
mean, the
yep.
MLS is definitely like one of those things. It's like it's the summer league, right? You're not going to be playing in the winter, competing against the Premier League and and that demand as well, right? But it is fun to sort of see. You wake up on the West Coast and watch a couple games in the morning, and then and then you've got like maybe some of the other sports to fill in the middle, and then you got your MLS stuff starting in the afternoon. So you can get going right from, well, maybe not from 4:30 in the morning right now. Sure makes for a
No,
long
I
day of
I know what you
sports.
mean. When I first moved to the States, that was kind of the thing of like, oh, hang on a minute. I can have, Premier League breakfast, watch all the games, and by the time even the late kickoff in the UK is over, I'm only at lunchtime, and then there's a whole there's all the other sports, whether it's hockey or whatever, to kind of go and get
Exactly.
involved in. So, yeah. So as you kind of look forward, then, so the support shield is okay, but do people not really kind of hold it aloft as a big thing? Then it's almost like an incidental. Well, really, you made the playoffs, and here you go. Here's a little supporter shield that you can
Here you
have.
go. Exactly. Yeah. And as a Canadian speaking, like we're sort of raised on this whole like Stanley Cup run, right? So it's like the hardest trophy to win in sports is the Stanley Cup. So I have a little bit of sympathy for the MLS Cup and the MLS prize after the playoffs. But I mean, the supporter shield winning the whole league is kind of you can't go wrong with that. That's something nice to put in the.
Okay, okay, because there's technically more consistency and more winning is needed to actually feel to finish top of the pile, right? So,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on? I saw that it's not the MLS, it's the well, my local team, Hartford. I think they're in the USL, I think, and
USL.
they and,
Yep.
and they're voting on to introduce, I think, relegation. Soon they
Yep.
want to kind of copy that model, which I think a league without relegation loses a little bit of that jeopardy for the teams down
Mm.
the bottom. Now I know MLS is franchise based and therefore kind of like a closed book. I'm not sure MLS will ever introduce it, but it would be pretty. Wouldn't it be pretty cool to be able to see the champions of the USL come up to the MLS and someone, Miami drop down to the USL?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of it is economics, right? I mean, it's all like chasing that TV deal to
Yep.
to make these teams viable, all of the teams viable, really. I mean, Vancouver's has had a success, but when you see the rankings and news stories about the economics of professional sports in North America, Vancouver Whitecaps have lost a lot of money. I mean, the owners are going to do well, okay, because basically they got in at the ground floor, and they're local owners, and it's great for them. But definitely, as the MLS and soccer increases in terms of its size and the cost of doing business, you kind of relegation isn't relegation could really devastate a team. I mean, look at Luton. I'm like, Jesus, how do you go from like the Premiership down to like what is it, League Two now? I'm
Yeah,
thinking, yeah, I think in
yeah. It's
USL
it's
it's probably a
it's
good thing though. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because you've got
yeah,
on one hand, you've got those teams that face financial ruin because they overcommitted to trying to stay in something like the Premier League, and then it didn't quite work out, and then they suffer multiple relegations, and suddenly they're down in lower tiers with no TV money, but probably
yeah,
big contracts to pay big wages, and it can completely ruin a club. So that's kind of the downside of the model. The upside of the model is you can get those zero to hero teams that just can thread together a couple of seasons and make it to the promised land and suddenly be up with the Arsenal's, Manchester Cities, and Liverpool's, and all those kind of teams, and it
Yeah,
gives everybody that kind of, you know,
yeah,
quest to follow that maybe, just maybe, we could make it one day.
yeah, exactly.
So
I think too the geography for the USL and the given the number of teams and probably the population density is not such a bad thing for the USL. It's probably a good model for them. I don't know if it really works for Canadian teams just because of the sheer distance and the cost.
yeah,
You kind of need like the big cities involved in like the MLS, and maybe that works. But then you need good owners that are willing to like do what they can. I mean, in baseball, God, look at Pittsburgh. They've been terrible. I mean, like maybe that team definitely needs if MLB relegation option. They'll be like, you've been consistently bad for 5 years. You're down. Like, you can forget it. We're gonna get somebody else, right?
they could
I
have the opposite of the playoffs, and just kind of, losers go down. You if you keep losing, you go through to the next round until you
Yeah,
finally get
exactly.
to the ultimate final. If you lose that, you're down.
Yeah.
But
I think the other factor too is that in North America, you have so many options for other things to take your entertainment money too. In I got family in Portugal and I've seen England when we visited, and I'm just like, everybody's into it. Everybody's into football, women's, men's, Sunday league, everything.
yeah,
And maybe it makes sense because where else are people going to go spend their money on a weekend? You know, in Vancouver, it's a struggle. Like we obviously the Caps play in a nice stadium downtown, which helps with the economics of getting like the young folks coming in and maybe getting the families downtown for a game or two. But there's a lot of options, and even still with I know we've got 3.5 million people in our greater Vancouver region, but not everybody's coming all the way out for an hour drive to get downtown and pay for parking and then pay for an expensive beer and that sort of thing. Whereas like you go into Portugal and England, it's like, oh, this is actually not too bad still. This is not the ticket's not stupid expensive. If you don't go see Premier League, well, there's some pretty decent championship teams to go
yeah,
follow, and they're only like a 30-minute drive away sometimes.
yeah, 100%. No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, time is creeping up on us, but we did say we needed to touch on one other thing.
Yeah,
So when I kind of first came across you, I think probably on Reddit, I think we ended up
yeah,
bumping into each other. It was actually nothing to do with the Whitecaps thread that we were on. We were actually talking about Ipswich Town.
yeah.
Um, and you said you're an Ipswich fan. So I got to ask two things. How did you end up becoming an Ipswich fan? And what's your thoughts on a season like this season where there isn't really a lot of
Yeah.
good things to watch and you end up getting relegated? So we're just a couple of minutes just on how you ended up being an Ipswich fan.
Well, the funny thing was we were doing a family trip. My wife's aunts live in England. One lives in Ipswich, and so on our family trip there two summers ago now, um, we were looking at our vacation schedule, and I was like, okay, well, my son's he loves soccer, he loves Premier League, he loves Arsenal and Saka, but that wasn't going to be doable in our schedule. And we're like, well, I looked at the thing and I'm like, oh, Ipswich, they have a professional team. Oh, they're playing their home opener. We're going to be there the same amount of time. I'm like, let's go. So luckily was able to get tickets right up there in the home opener, and they're playing Stoke City, and it was just I well, getting a ticket was a process, but we ended up getting them, and we had a fantastic time. It was a beautiful town. The downtown core definitely needs a little bit of a cleanup, but I think they'll get there. And the story for them coming up from, was it League One into the championship and then getting into the Premier League.
They absolutely ran away with the championship, I think, if memory serves me right. And
Yeah, yeah. And
just then,
so,
like a lot of teams did, just struggled to convert that to Premier League form.
yeah, and it was, I mean, the Ipswich fans are great. I mean, I think a lot of people online knew that it was going to be tough, a tough year being there again. They had a new coach. They had some phenomenal players. When we were there, it was just nice to sort of be in a great soccer rich atmosphere. And so, my son's been following Premier League a lot, and it was fun to sort of see. see the boys, see the young coach who actually had 3 months experience in the Whitecaps for when he was starting out and getting his tickets, right? So funny little connection there, and yeah, we had a great time, and it was just fun to be around a town, to see the whole town just awash in blue, and then come home and see their go on their magical championship run and make it to the premiership. So fingers crossed. Hopefully they have another good year in the championship and they rebound back up again. I think they've got good owners. They've got a good financial sense there. They're doing a lot of renovation, so it'll be a fun story to watch from abroad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've had other guests on that have talked about, especially if they're yo-yo teams that kind of go up and then come back down again. It's yeah, relegation is not great, but actually you probably prepare yourself for it because not too many teams stick and stay in the Premier League like that. And then hopefully you get to look forward to a year where you're up at the top again and kind of enjoying every week. So
Exactly, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing Wrexham play Ipswich.
yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, there you go. You got the Canadian connection there again with old Mr. Reynolds. So
Well, Mr. Reynolds, I knew somebody who played a little football with him when he was younger. He's about my age, so
oh wow. Oh, look at all these little Ipswich, Wrexham, and Vancouver Whitecaps all connected. So,
6 degrees of separation, baby. It's all over the place. If you just
oh,
look
it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant catching up. Thank you so much for doing this. And I will definitely be looking forward to the final on the 1st of June now. I'll be cheering on the Whitecaps.
Thank you
I've got,
so much, and look forward to following your teams too. And it's been a fun chat.
thanks a lot, Carlos. Cheers.
Cheers. Have a good one.